Chiefs Kingdom. Today, we are breaking down in a little bit more depth the news that broke this morning via Adam Schefter that Patrick Mahomes is restructuring his deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about what comes next for this football team. Who are the following moves to continue to create cap space? Let's get into it and break it down. But before we do, I got to let you guys know, we have our awesome Kansas City drinking team St. Patrick's Day merch available for you guys on the Chat Sports shop. It is fantastic. It comes in two different colors. You can get the Kelly green, even though we don't really like the Eagles, or you can get the nice black, which this is the one that I will be rocking. I think they both look great, though. I love that clover on the helmet. I think it's an awesome piece to wear for St. Patrick's Day or just in general. It looks really, really great. So rock the kingdom this St. Patrick's Day and pick up yours. You can get it at chatsports.com/KC Green. One more time, that's chatsports.com/KC Green. And let's get into the news. So, Patrick Mahomes, big time restructure today. Big time team player moment from number 15. As for the fourth consecutive season, every year since he initially got the new extension, he restructures his contract with the Kansas City Chiefs, this time creating a whopping $43.5 million in cap space. So here's the breakdown for you guys. Before the restructure, Mahomes was on the books at $78 million, over $78 million. The savings amount to $43.5 million. And savings is an interesting word because it's really just savings in 2026. And we'll get into that in a second. But the new cap hit for 2026 for Patrick Mahomes is now sitting at $34.6 million. But this does create down the line issues. So we'll bring up the year over year cap here. 2026, just $34.6 million. But you look at next year, holy cow, $85.2 million cap hit for Patrick Mahomes next season. That's where that money went, guys. That's where the $43.5 million got dumped to primarily, is that 2027 season with a little bit going to 2028 and then the remainder going to 2029. And note, all of this becomes guaranteed cash. Every penny of that $43.5 million that got rolled over to 27, 28, and 29 is fully guaranteed for Patrick Mahomes. So good day to be Pat, and great day to be the Kansas City Chiefs, because this is enormous cash savings for us. This is Patrick putting team before player, but knowing down the line he's going to get his cash. He's still getting great cash this season as well at 34.6, but a very selfless decision from Patrick Mahomes here to defer a little bit of payment to help the team out. So I think we need to say thank you. I think we need to thank Patrick here. Spam 15 in the comments to say thank you to Patrick Mahomes for continuing to put the team first, for continuing to agree, and not only agree, but to do so wholeheartedly, to restructure his contract to help this team have the success he knows it's capable of having if they can build around him and be aggressive this offseason. But they need that cap to do it, and Patrick agrees to give him it. So spam those 15s. Let's thank Patrick Mahomes. But now let's talk about who's next. And the number one, the most obvious move, the thing that everybody and their mother knows is coming down the line. Hell, this might even happen today on Wednesday. We are filming this video. It is currently 11:54. It hasn't happened yet, but Jawaan Taylor's ass is getting out of Kansas City. They are cutting him, I promise you. Let's look at the numbers on this. The total contract value for Jawaan Taylor, and this is the final year of his deal for 2026, is $27.3 million if you leave him on the books. However, $20 million of that is available as cap savings if you cut him before the start of the year. It's game check. So he's got to play those games to get that $20 million in salary. If he doesn't play, it doesn't matter. The only guarantee on the deal is the $7 million in debt. So yes, you are saving $20 freaking million if you cut Jawaan Taylor. And we've had this conversation before. Everybody knows that this has to happen, and it's not even a difficult decision because while Jawaan Taylor's a fine right tackle, his penalty problems drive us all up a wall, and we're ready to go without this dude. You look at the offensive line depth chart and the guys that we've got ready to go. Remember, Josh Simmons will be back healthy. We finished the year without him last season, but he'll be back filling that left tackle spot, which means Jalen Moore or Essa Pillay could be your starting right tackle. They're going to compete for that job next season. It is, in my opinion, beyond a foregone conclusion. It is absolute 100% fact. Jawaan Taylor will not be a Kansas City Chief in 2026. They will save the $20 million getting rid of him. He is the easiest, most obvious cut on this team. But he's not the only one. He is not the only one that's going to be packing his bags over the next couple of weeks. There's a few other guys that I think the Kansas City Chiefs could look at moving off of as well. But these are a little bit more difficult decisions. They're easy cuts in the sense that they all save you money, but they're not going to do all of these, and not every single one of them is like the easiest decision in the world, if that makes sense when I say easy cuts. But there's 4 guys that you could potentially get rid of for good cap savings. Mike Danna is the most obvious outside of Jawaan Taylor. $8.9 million for a guy who's been declining every season over the last couple of years. That's a pretty easy move. You're going to see that one occur as well. I would put that at a 95% chance. Jawan's 100, Mike Danna's 95. Drew Tranquill, he's the coin flip at the end of the day. You could see the Chiefs opt for $6 million in savings, but I could also see them be like, you know what? At the end of the day, we've got other things that we want to address in the draft and not go after an inside linebacker. Let's keep Tranquill around for this season. We'll eat that $6 million and we'll instead save the picks, for other positions, more addressing maybe some picks on offense with the receivers and a lot on the defensive line. Christian Fulton, I don't think is going anywhere, but he is available at a $5 million cut. And then you could also release Shamari Connor, and that would save you $3.6 million. I think the two most likely are Danna and Connor. Connor wasn't great in the secondary last year. I think you can get better value from him either with a replacement level free agent or with a draft pick. All in, if you make the 3 cuts that we've talked about, that I think the Kansas City Chiefs will make, Mike Danna, Jawaan Taylor, and Shamari Connor, you are saving a whopping $32.7 million already. Add that into the 43.5 that you saved earlier today from Patrick Mahomes. This is separate. This is a separate $32 million. So we are moving in the right direction, my friends. We'll total everything up at the end of today's show. But 2 more things that the Kansas City Chiefs could potentially do to save on cap before we get into that. Chris Jones is one of them. Could the Kansas City Chiefs look to move off of Chris Jones or restructure Chris Jones's deal? I don't know. At the end of the day, guys, this one is a touchy conversation. We've talked about potentially restructuring Chris Jones's deal in the past, but the more I get into the weeds with the numbers, the more I look at the financials, I don't think this is the right call for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to explain why. Right now, he's on the books for a $44.8 million cap hit, which is pretty big. You could save $22.5 million of that by restructuring and rolling forward to the final 2 years left of Chris Jones's deal, moving him down to a $22.3 million cap hit. But again, I wouldn't do this because if you look at the restructure numbers going down the line, things get out of hand on Chris Jones's deal. 2026, yes, he's on the books at 22.3, but 27, you're looking at 49 for that would be the cap hit. And then 2028, you're looking at a plus $50 million cap hit on Chris Jones, who has continued to take steps back, unfortunately. At the end of the day, 2025 was one of the worst seasons of Chris Jones's career. 63 pressures, 7 sacks, and 19 QB hits are solid statistics, but that is not the kind of money or kind of production you are looking for from a guy you're paying that kind of money. I say don't touch his deal. There is plenty of other ways to get money. We just talked about how you can create $32.7 million in cap by moving a couple people off of the roster. We're going to, in a minute, talk about some other restructures that the Kansas City Chiefs could make to save money that I feel like are safer options. I don't think you touch Chris Jones's deal. I think you leave it the way it is and keep the option to get him off the roster for cheaper next season if he continues his decline. You're going to lose that. You're going to have a lot of dead cap to eat if you restructure this deal. So do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments. Would you restructure Chris Jones's deal? Type move if you're on board with the idea of restructuring. Move that money down the line, or stay if you want to leave the deal as is. Move if you want to restructure. Stay if you want to leave it as is. Let's get into the final way the Kansas City Chiefs can create some cap space, and that's with our guys up front. The big boys on offense are two superstars along the offensive line, Humphrey and Trey Smith, both on the books with big contracts, but both of those contracts are relatively flexible at the end of the day. Both of these guys can be restructured. And I am more comfortable restructuring them than I am Chris Jones. A lot more comfortable for a couple of reasons. Number one, let's start with Humphrey. Let's look at his deal first. Right now, he's on the books for an $18.1 million cap hit before any sort of restructure in 2026. The possible savings via the restructure would be almost $9 million, moving his new 2026 cap hit down to just $9 million. And you look at the future of the deal, if you were to restructure this, hey, that's not so bad. $9.2 million for the center in 2026. Again, he's the best center in football. $26 million in 2027. That'll probably be the going rate for the top center next year after you get new deals in. 2028, $26 million again. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with being tied up like that on Humphrey. Yeah, a lot of that cash is going to be guaranteed. Yeah, you're not going to be able to move off of him, but why the hell would we want to? He's the best center in football. I have no issues being locked in with that guy. Of course we want to be locked in with that guy. Trey Smith, let's take a look at his deal. $24 million on the books right now, $12.5 million in possible savings if you were to restructure for a new cap hit of $11.9 million. Throwing a lot of numbers at you guys, I know, but stay with me here. Year over year, if you restructure, you're looking at $11.9 million in 2026. Once again, $34 million in 2027 and 2028. Once again, you total those up, $60 million to two of your best offensive linemen over the next 2 years. I don't care. That's fine with me. I don't care about spending $60 million up front on protection for Patrick Mahomes. I'll spend $100 million up front on protection for Patrick Mahomes. That's one of the biggest areas of focus for this team. That should be one of the number one things you build on every single year is how can we spend a little bit more money on making sure the protection for Patrick Mahomes is as good as it possibly can be? How can we keep the best group of guys up front, the best possible 5 in front of 15? I don't care if we're tied up like that with those two guys. I'll be tied up like that with them any day that ends in Y at the end of the day. Those are not guys you want to have leave the roster. I don't care if the dead cap is huge because we're not cutting them. Let's look at where we're at after all of these moves. I know we've talked about a lot today. We've talked about releases that could save the Chiefs up to $32 million. We've talked about potentially restructuring Chris Jones, but we're not going to total that in here because I don't think it would be a good idea. And then we also talked about the restructures that we could do with Humphrey and Trey Smith. You add all of that up, where we were sitting before, negative $11.3 million in cap. What we have saved, a whopping $54 million, sitting on new cap space of $42.5 million. That's top 10 in the NFL. We've gone from the lowest cap space in the NFL to being top 10. And these are moves the Kansas City Chiefs could all have done by the end of the week. How about that? How do you like them apples, Chiefs Kingdom? If you like them, if you like that plan, like today's video for me and make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. We are your one-stop shop for everything Kansas City Chiefs this offseason. We're going to have a lot more videos coming about the restructure, some aggressive moves the Kansas City Chiefs could make once they have created that cap space. You don't want to miss it, so make sure you hit that sub button, and we'll see you next time.